George Taylor dropped to his knees in the surf. The broken crown of the Statue of Liberty jutted from the sand like a fossilized scream. His voice cracked as he cursed the long-dead architects of humanity's downfall. But Taylor wasn't alone. A group of figures emerged from the shadow of Liberty's broken pedestal. They were young, pale, and blinking at the sunlight like newborns. Logan was the first to step forward. They had escaped the city of domes. Taylor stood, stunned. "Who the hell are you?" Before Logan could respond, the apes arrived. A mounted patrol of guerrilla soldiers thundered over the ridge. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Brutus, raged at the sight of the newcomers. Humans. Armed humans. Logan reached for his weapon. It hummed alive with a familiar electric whine. Brutus barked an order. "Seize them." The guerrillas charged. Logan fired. Blue-white bolts lanced through the air with surgical precision. 3 guerrillas fell before they even reached the surf. The rest skidded to a halt, eyes wide with terror. They had never seen a human fight back before, let alone with weapons more advanced than anything in Ape City. Brutus turned his horse and fled. The remaining apes scrambled after him, tripping over each other in their panic. Taylor stared astonished. "You people, you can fight." Logan lowered his weapon. "We were trained to hunt runners." Taylor turned to watch the fleeing apes. "Well, you certainly made them run." From behind the new arrivals, an elderly voice spoke. "What's going on? What have we here, more friends?" The old man's eyes widened at the sight of the apes retreating. "So they're real," he whispered. "I always suspected." Taylor exhaled. "Welcome to the future, old man." "It's a mess." The old man laughed. "I've always been here. Maybe I should be welcoming you." 1 year later, the old man, who had spent most of his life in quiet solitude, now found himself surrounded by the energy of youth. The newcomers had arrived knowing nothing about the outside world, but Logan's people had learned quickly. So now the once ruined houses were being repaired. Crops grew in neat rows where weeds had ruled, and this place that had been his lonely world for decades was alive with laughter and purpose. And everywhere, cats, dozens of them, adopted by the newly freed humans who found comfort in their warmth and independence. Inside one of the repaired houses, a newborn cried. The first wave of naturally born children had arrived, fragile but healthy. Their parents watched them with a mixture of fear and wonder. Taylor spent most of his days in the library, poring over old newspapers, history books, and brittle magazines. They explained what had happened to Earth while he slept in orbit. He read until his eyes burned. Nova sat beside him, listening. She didn't understand every word, but she understood him, and she was changing. Logan's people taught her language slowly, gently. She learned to think in ways her ancestors had forgotten. Taylor noticed. "You're becoming someone new," he told her one evening. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Nova, learning." Taylor smiled, but the humans' progress didn't please everybody. High in the trees beyond the settlement, a trio of chimpanzee scouts crouched in silence. This was the closest they'd been to the humans since that first encounter. Their leader, a young researcher named Virus, scribbled notes on a parchment. "Humans rebuilding," he wrote. "Humans breeding. Humans armed." The memory of the Sandman's weapons haunted every ape who had witnessed them. Virus peered through the leaves at the children playing with cats in the sunlight. "This tribe is not like the others," he murmured, troubling. Behind him, a guerrilla soldier shifted uneasily. "Shouldn't we report this to General Ursus?" Virus hesitated. "Yes," he said finally. He watched as Nova joined the children, laughing softly as a kitten climbed her arm. "That's the feral girl," Virus said. "Not so feral now," the gorilla growled. The apes melted back into the forest. The humans continued rebuilding, unaware the apes had been tracking their every move. Cornelius had never led a troop this far into the Forbidden Zone. They entered the cave. The air felt colder, unnaturally so, and the ground was littered with strange metallic debris half swallowed by sand. "Proceed carefully," he warned the gorillas. The temperature dropped sharply as they stepped inside. The walls glittered with frost. The air tasted metallic, and everywhere, frozen figures, humans locked in poses of terror, their final moments preserved in crystalline stillness. Cornelius approached a massive collapsed machine, its limbs twisted, its faceplate cracked. A metal giant lay crushed under tons of fallen ice. A faded label on its chest read, Box 714. Cornelius brushed ice from its surface. This creature froze them. All of them. Further in the chamber they saw something even more disturbing. Apes, frozen mid-stride, their expressions contorted in fear. Some had been here for decades. Cornelius swallowed hard. This is why the Forbidden Zone was forbidden. Not because of superstition, but because of this. The gorillas shifted uneasily. Even they felt the weight of the revelation. "Let's leave," one muttered. "This place is cursed." Cornelius didn't argue. As they emerged from the icy cavern, Cornelius spotted movement on a nearby ridge. 3 figures, Logan, Taylor, and Nova. The gorillas looked uneasy, but Cornelius lifted a hand. Nova stepped forward, eyes wide. She stared at Cornelius with recognition. "Cornelius." Cornelius froze. She had spoken. The gorillas murmured nervously. A human speaking was unsettling enough, but a feral human speaking was something very different. Cornelius felt a strange warmth. "Nova, you speak." Nova nodded, proud and shy all at once. "I learn. Logan people." She gave a small smile. The gorillas didn't. Cornelius sensed the tension. "We mean no harm. We came to investigate the ruins. That thing in there froze many of my people." Logan winced. He froze anything that moved. He'd gone mad. Cornelius studied Logan's weapon holster. "Your people. They are unlike the humans we know." Logan fixed the gorillas with a stare. "We've survived so far." Survival was something the gorillas understood. Back in Ape City, Dr. Zaius read reports with a mixture of fascination and dread. He tapped his cane thoughtfully. "I agree with Virus. This is troubling." Cornelius nodded. "But they are not like the humans of old. They are rebuilding peacefully." Zaius frowned. "Peace is temporary. Human nature is not." Still, curiosity gnawed at him. "This old man you mentioned. You say he is ancient." Cornelius nodded. "Older than any human we have ever seen." The doctor's eyes gleamed. "Arrange a meeting." The meeting took place at the edge of the new settlement where the ruins met the forest. Logan, Taylor, Nova, and the old man waited as Zaius approached with a small escort. There was a moment of awkward silence. Then the old man began to talk. He spoke about his earliest memories. He seemed to understand what the doctor wanted to know. Zaius studied the old man with clinical fascination. Remarkable. A human of such age. "How have you survived?" The old man chuckled. "Clean living. And cats." Zaius blinked. "Cats?" The old man reached into a basket and lifted a small purring tabby. "For you." Zaius recoiled slightly. "What am I to do with this creature?" "Let it sit on your lap," the old man said. "It'll teach you patience." Zaius was flustered but accepted the cat with stiff dignity. The animal immediately curled into his arms, purring loudly. Zaius cleared his throat. "We will continue our observations." Cornelius later said that he'd never seen the doctor so disarmed. But as the old man told him, cats will do that. As the apes departed, Logan noticed movement in the tree line. Chimpanzee scouts, gorilla soldiers, watching. Nova slipped her hand into Taylor's. "Danger." Taylor looked at her, surprised by the clarity in her voice. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think you're right." 6 months of uneasy peace, and the settlement had changed. There were more rebuilt and repaired houses. Toddlers took their first steps in the dusty streets under the watchful eyes of their parents. And in the old man's library, Cornelius turned another fragile page. He had been coming here secretly for months, slipping away from Ape City under the pretense of field research. In truth, he was devouring all the literature he could find. Histories, scientific journals, philosophy, even children's books. The old man encouraged it, delighted to see someone, anyone, hungry for knowledge. Cornelius closed the book and rubbed his temples. So much was lost, and so much was thrown away. The old man chuckled. Humans were good at that. Cornelius sighed. I fear apes inherited the habit. When Cornelius returned to Ape City, Dr. Zaius was waiting for him in the council chamber, stroking the tabby cat that had become his constant companion. The animal purred loudly, oblivious to the tension in the room. Zaius didn't look up. You've been spending a great deal of time with the new humans. Cornelius kept his voice steady. I've been studying their history. The doctor's eyes narrowed. Their books are dangerous, and the general thinks their presence is dangerous. As Zaius absent-mindedly scratched behind the cat's ears, Cornelius couldn't help noticing the irony. With respect, Doctor, Cornelius said, you're holding a gift from a human while chastising me for speaking to them. Zaius froze mid-stroke. You're treading a thin line, Cornelius. The lawgivers warned us about the seductive nature of humanity. Cornelius bowed his head, but his voice remained firm. And yet, they are not the humans of old. Zaius didn't answer. He simply got up and walked away. The cat yawned and went back to sleep. Back in the settlement, Nova sat on a blanket in the shade of a rebuilt wall, her hand resting on her stomach. She watched the children playing nearby. Taylor approached quietly. How are you feeling? Nova smiled. He sat beside her watching the children play. But his expression was troubled. Nova touched his cheek. He hesitated. Nova took his hand and placed it on her belly. Cornelius visited the settlement again a week later. He found Taylor sitting outside. You look troubled, Cornelius said. Is the baby okay? Taylor didn't look up, as far as we can tell. Cornelius sat beside him. You fear the child will be different. Taylor's jaw tightened. Cornelius considered his words carefully. I think your child will be the first of something new. And new things always frighten the old. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Nova appeared beside them, smiling at Cornelius. Hello, Cornelius. Cornelius beamed. Hello, Nova. Taylor watched them, a strange mixture of pride and dread twisting inside him. Unbeknownst to them, a pair of chimpanzee scouts watched from the tree line. One whispered, the feral woman speaks now, and she carries a child. We must report this. The other nodded grimly. They slipped away silently. The fragile piece trembled again. Taylor and Logan walked along the concrete hydroelectric channels that still hummed beneath their feet. The system was untouched, turbines turning, water flowing. They followed the curve of the shore until the domes loomed above them, immense and quiet. A breach in the outer shell yawned like a wound. Logan stepped through first. Easier than last time, he said, brushing dust from his sleeve. Taylor had wanted to see the city for some time, but the destruction caused when Logan and his people had fled had been considerable. It had only recently stopped smoking. The city had been a utopia once. Now the corridors were silent except for the faint drip of condensation. They stood looking, and the giant metallic hand that was the symbol of Carousel. Its surface was dull, but the crystal in its angled palm still shone red. Logan looked down at the crystal still embedded in his palm. It had been clear since he left the city the first time. The central computer, the great glowing eye that had once controlled Carousel, lay dark and silent. Its systems weren't much more advanced than those that took Taylor to space. The way Logan's people had lived was centuries ahead, but the core tech was very familiar. He hadn't told Logan his plans. He works for hours, no tools, no manuals, just his hands and memory. Logan watched and helped where he could by clearing debris. He'd taken the technology for granted, but he had no idea how it worked. Taylor got to his feet. There was only one thing left to do. He pointed to a metal panel. Help me get that off, Taylor said. Logan wedged his fingers under the edge and pulled it free, revealing a recessed compartment filled with switches. Big, industrial ones. Taylor inspected each switch. Then he straightened and stepped back. Logan, he said quietly, flipped them. Logan reached in and threw the first switch. As sparks flew, he quickly flipped the rest. A violent crack of electricity snapped through the room. The consoles shuddered. The chamber came alive. It's working, Logan whispered. Only partly, Taylor said, but enough to start. He turned to the terminal behind him, fingers flying across the keys with frantic precision. Error messages flashed and vanished as he overrode them. He knew he owed Logan an explanation. Taylor explained to Logan what he'd been doing, about how there used to be a power grid, much like in the city, except this one fed electricity across the world. The hydroelectrics were still producing energy, and he was instructing the computer to redirect it outside. He hoped that if enough of the grid was still intact, the power might reach beyond the domes. A message appeared, running diagnostics. Please wait. Logan stared at the blinking light. When will we know if it's worked? I don't know, Taylor said. Maybe days, maybe never. They stood together, watching the faint pulse of the machine. We'll come back soon, Taylor said. There was no point in telling the others just yet. They stepped back out into the light, hopeful about what the next few days might bring. But the next few days were going to bring more than they expected. In Apes City, the Guerrilla Council had grown restless. General Ursus slammed his fist on the table. We wait while Zeus fusses over the humans' gift and dithers with diplomacy. The humans grow stronger. A murmur of agreement rippled through the guerrillas. Ursus leaned forward. We must strike now, before they become a threat. One guerrilla hesitated, but Dr. Zeus is blinded by his pet, Ursus growled. He has forgotten the lawgiver's warnings. Cornelius had come to the council chamber to deliver his latest report, but stopped short when he heard Ursus's voice echoing through the hall. Wipe them out before the child is born. Cornelius's blood ran cold. He ran, toward the settlement, toward the humans. When Taylor and Logan returned to the settlement, they were met by Jessica. Taylor, the baby's coming. Nova was surrounded by women from Logan's people. Taylor rushed to her side. He kissed her forehead. Cornelius stumbled into the settlement, gasping for breath. He forced the words out. Guerrillas, marching. Ursus is bringing a war. Logan's expression hardened. They needed to fortify the settlement and do it quickly. Taylor heard the commotion from inside the house. Nova squeezed his hand. Outside, Logan barked orders. His people had adapted well to the outside world, but they weren't warriors. Logan stood staring at the weapon that had once saved them on the beach. Its power cell hadn't been recharged in over a year. Its glow had dimmed. If the battle dragged on, he wasn't sure how long it would hold. Cornelius steadied himself. Can I help? Logan nodded. Yes. Get the children somewhere safe. The old man, too. Hours later, makeshift defenses had been erected. People were hiding, and a baby's cry pierced the settlement. Taylor wept openly. The baby looked like a baby, a perfectly beautiful baby. But outside, the ground trembled. The guerrilla army had arrived. The Sandman took the front line behind hastily built barricades, their energy pistols humming with a faint blue glow. General Ursus raised his arm. The guerrillas charged. The Sandman fired. Blue bolts streaked across the battlefield. The apes stumbled, shocked by the accuracy, the same shock they'd felt on the beach. But this time, they didn't break. They kept coming. Logan shouted, "Hold the line!" The other Sandman fired in controlled bursts, but with every shot their weapons dimmed. They were losing power. A Sandman's pistol sputtered, then died. One by one the weapons went dark. The guerrillas roared in triumph. The barricades buckled. A guerrilla knocked a Sandman to the ground. Logan saw it happening, saw the line collapsing, and made a choice. He stepped forward, hands raised. "Stop! Stop this!" the general roared, and the battlefield froze. Ursus snarled. "Surrender? Good. The more of you we take prisoner, the more of you will have to serve us. You'll make better slaves than the feral humans." Suddenly a lone voice cut through the chaos. "Enough." Dr. Zeus rode into the settlement on horseback, his orange robes billowing. He dismounted with surprising agility for his age. "General Ursus," he said sharply, "you will stand down." Zeus turned to Logan, who still stood with his hands raised. "You seek peace?" Logan nodded. "We want to live. That's all." "They are dangerous, Zeus," the general barked. But we are stronger. We are superior. Dr. Zaius stood opposite him. His voice was calm but firm. Strength alone does not grant superiority, General. Ursus snarled. It grants survival. Zaius opened his mouth to reply, but his eyes drifted to Logan's palm. The crystal, the life clock embedded in Logan's hand, dead for over a year, was flickering. Logan followed the doctor's gaze. His breath caught. He addressed the general. "You may have strength," he said, "but we have power." At first nothing happened. Then one of the old street lamps sputtered to life, casting a pale circle of light across the dirt. Then lights inside several of the rebuilt houses glowed faintly. Cornelius's voice rang out from above. "Look, look, in the distance." He stood on the roof of the tallest building, the old man and several children beside him. He pointed toward the distant hills. In the darkness, tiny pinpricks of light were appearing. Ursus whispered, "What sorcery is this?" "Not sorcery. Technology. Our technology." Logan felt a faint vibration. He looked down. His firearm's power cell was drinking in energy from the newly awakened grid. The weapon gave a low, hungry whine, not fully charged. Not enough for long range. But at this distance, enough to kill any ape in front of him, including the general on horseback. Ursus saw it too. His eyes widened, nostrils flaring. He froze in the saddle. Logan's jaw tightened. But he didn't raise the weapon. Instead, he spun toward the settlement, toward the Sandmen who were coming to the same conclusion. "No!" Logan shouted, voice cracking across the square. The Sandman froze before they could open fire. Every guerrilla flinched. Logan turned back to Ursus. Slowly, deliberately, he holstered the weapon, looking up at him with a stare that cut through the dust and fear. "It's over," Logan said, loud enough for every human and ape to hear. Zaius exhaled, the tension leaving his shoulders. "You see now," he said, "why we must not destroy them." Ursus glared. "They threaten our way of life." Zaius shook his head. "It seems to me that he just preserved it." He gestured toward the faint lights in the distance. "These humans possess knowledge lost long ago. We stand at a crossroads. Fear will lead us to ruin. Cooperation may lead us to prosperity. There are positives to their way of life." His cat poked its head out of the doctor's satchel, blinking at the sudden brightness. The general looked at the animal, a creature he had never seen before the new humans arrived. Finally, he spoke. "I have much to think about." He turned his horse sharply and rode away, his troops following in uneasy silence. As the guerrillas disappeared into the night, Logan exhaled, exhausted. That was too close. Cornelius climbed down from the library roof, relief washing over him. "The lights, they saved us." Zaius approached, the cat now laying sleepily in his arms. "Not the lights alone," he said, "but the promise behind them." Logan reached and stroked the purring feline. He met the doctor's gaze. "So, what now?" 5 years had passed since the night the lights came back on. The settlement, once a scattering of rebuilt houses, had grown into a thriving town. Scavenged technology from the city had made things easier. Ape-style homes, with curved roofs, now stood comfortably between human houses. Children played in the streets, human children, ape children, and the children of the once primitive tribes who had joined them. At the center of town stood a statue, the old man and Dr. Zaius side by side, each with a cat in their arms. The inscription read, "Wisdom is not in who we were, but in who we choose to become." Both had passed peacefully, the old man first, then Zaius a year later, each surrounded by cats, each happy in the knowledge that the world they left behind was better than the one they'd inherited. Taylor had become a father for the second time. As he cradled his daughter, he watched Nova give their son Dodge his reading lesson. They were both sitting on a step, the same step where he had sat worrying over nothing. Cornelius was away from home, and not for the first time. He, along with others, had spent the last few years traveling far beyond the settlement, searching for the scattered remnants of humanity, primitive tribes who still lived in fear of apes. They brought as many as they could back to join their community, and when they did, like Nova, they thrived. Logan had insisted on it. Many of the people from the dome, himself included, would have been lost to Carousel if they hadn't escaped. So if they were building a new world, they should build it for everyone. Logan had become the natural leader, partly because his bravery won them victory against the apes, but mostly because his mercy for the apes brought them peace. And the peace had lasted. Some apes still lived in their own settlements, choosing not to mingle, but they were still in communication with those that did. They also no longer hunted humans, at first out of fear of repercussions, but now because even the most stubborn ape had seen the truth. Humans were not animals, like the feral humans Cornelius brought into the fold. The apes learned and changed, because wisdom is not in who we were, but in who we choose to become.